something that we must point out very, very quickly. Now, before we get into the heart of the video, we're going to do some house cleaning. And we must first start off with this gentleman right here, Jamal Bowman out of New York. If you're not familiar with him, this is Jamal Anthony Bowman out of New York, age 46, 47. He's an American politician that is representative for New York 16th Congressional District. And for quite some time, we've been telling people of his role and status within New York of this black and brown coalition that does not exist, but you keep having these Democratic hopefuls to get the brown vote, which is mostly actually voting for Republican. But nonetheless, this is his way of connecting the black and brown coalition between the two, between the one race with the ethnic group. So that is what he believes that will get him some more Democratic votes by doing things of this nature. Okay. Buck dancing and Cooney for Zaddy. There is no black and brown coalition, unfortunately. Black people are getting killed with impunity, whether it be by white or white ideology, race soldiers, and or those who are in cahoots with neo-Nazi groups and stand up for the system of white supremacy. And that's not all. We have all sorts of people who support the system of white supremacy, including black, unfortunately. And he's just another testament. So that's one housekeeping item. Another one is, I am glad that this occurred. I am glad that Target lost $9 billion after pushing, once again, another Democratic agenda. And again, family, just so you're aware, the term woke has nothing to do with LGBTQ. It has nothing to do with it. It's about black consciousness, and that's not about places being LGBT friendly. And I'm glad they lost $9 billion, and I believe they should lose another $9 billion when they're promoting this to our children. Okay, so those are my very two housekeeping items, and we need to get right into the video because there's a lot to walk through during this video. Now, first, they're at it again. The bootlicks of white supremacy are at it again, and they want to get the most hires of academia to support this rhetoric. 10 words added to the first Oxford Dictionary of African American English. What does this remind you of? This reminds you of, what's the guy's name? His last name is Williams, I believe, that created the term ebonics because ebony meant black and phonics meant sounds of language or whatever thing phonetically, whatever, right? But he made up that term ebonics. And I even thought that was disrespectful to the black American family because we speak slang and we speak proper English and we are articulate, okay? Yeah, we may slow our words, but so do other nationalities and also immigrants that come into America. You have Italian Americans, Irish American, Asian Americans. They all have their form of English, so to speak, that they mix in with their own culture, background, and language. So when you point out one particular group, it's sort of a demeaning factor that these group of people could not learn proper English. That is what this is stating. Now, I first heard this on Jason's Black broadcast last night that inspired me to go a little more in depth about it. So when I look at this family, and again, they got Dr. Henry Gates, who's part of PBS. And PBS has been a propelling factor of some of this demagogue degrading language towards black Americans. Now, they say that this is the first of its kind. No, it's not. This is not the first of its kind. Because we have to look a little deeper in this. And let me pull this back over here, family, so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So you remember this, ebony and phonics, okay? Making ebonics. Now, I'm not going to go through this in its entirety, but we're going to point out the gentleman here, another person of black academia, Dr. Robert Williams, a black American social psychologist, coined the term ebonics in 1973. And for a very long time, black folk have been trying to get away from this term, We don't speak Ebonics. We either speak in English or we're speaking our own term in language when it comes to slang, okay? And everybody has their word of slang, meaning twisting, using words in different in alterations and in different etymologies of words. We're having fun with words. That's what slang is. Slang is having fun with words, or in some terms, because the lower part of black society in some regards use slang to mask what they were speaking about over the phones, so them folks couldn't understand what they were saying. But Ebonics is like, oh, we have this different language that we created because we couldn't speak or didn't speak proper language, deriving from 400 to 500 years ago in slavery, which is just so damn stupid. If I can say that even any better than that, it's so damn stupid. But listen to this. His goal was to combine the words ebony with phonics to refer to black sounds. Williams and several other black American social scientists had gathered at yet a conference sponsored by the National Institutes of Health to discuss the psychological development of black children. Interesting. Williams and his associates had been displeased with the term black English and began to ponder the alternatives. So they were displeased with the term black English, thus you made a word called Ebonics. Ebonics, ebony is the root word, means black. Phonics, sounds of language, means language, so black language. Black English, same difference. I don't even understand this, okay? See, in the world of academia, they get so lost in the system of white supremacy and to degrade and demean their people more so. Like, there's only a couple of us who can articulate and speak certain words on a particular level that you high whites do. So the rest of these black folks who derive from slaves, and even though I'm a descendant from maybe Frederick Douglass or Benjamin Banneker, those who are of high society can speak a lot better than these other so-called blacks that lives in the hoods and the ghettos. That's what I get from it. That is my conjecture. It says we need to define what we speak. We need to give a clear definition to our language. We know that ebony means black, and that the phonics refer to speech sounds or the science of sounds. Thus, we are really talking about the science of black speech, sounds, of language. So you're talking about black language, which is, you see the disrespect here, family. Even they are fumbling and contradicting themselves even when creating this piece. But let me move on. Although the preceding statement offers an early vague conception of Ebonics, the term was formally defined in 1975 when Williams published an edited volume, Ebonics, the true language of black folks. Now, we understand there's black people all around the world, and English is just one of our colonizers that our ancestors were enslaved by. Family, why are we so different when it comes to particular things in mass media, journalism, and academia? How you think these people getting funded? What is the plot? What is the play here? We're gonna get to it because there's more than meets the eye. No pun intended. The original Ebonics construct was intended to reflect the multinational linguistic results of the African slave trade. Prior to its coining, no single term described the linguistic consequences of this period in history. The vast majority of pertinent studies had all been in the United States, and terminology varied from year to year. Non-standard Negro English was common during the 1960s, succeeded by Black English or Black English Vernacular. Then you guys come up with Ebonics. Now there is a African American dictionary made by Oxford. Where's Oxford from? Where is he? You know what? Let's look it up very quickly. Where's Oxford from? Oxford Dictionary. Let's look up that, family, because I think it's very important to understand where things are founded, where they originate from, where they reside from, where they reside at, rather. Because I think it's important that we understand these things. So, is Oxford Dictionary British or American? Okay, this is going to take us out 1 second here. It says that the country is the United Kingdom, language is English. because the British, they speak proper English, or the Queen's English as they state. But I guess it's the King's English now. But nonetheless, I digress. But if we go back to the story here, it states that Oxford announced the forthcoming publication giving examples of word entries like boo and sedity. Reps from Oxford have revealed that there are already over 100 words selected to include the dictionary and per the New York Times. We're going to get on the New York Times. And someone that you guys may not be familiar with, but you should, Sandra E. Garcia. But we'll get on that, because there's a lot of people to be pointed out here. Henry Gates as well. Reportedly, the first edition of the dictionary will be available in March 20 of 25. No, keep that trash and destroy it. Now, we're going to roughly go over some words right here, right? And again, I told you that PBS, keep your eye on PBS, okay? Because don't forget, when we talk about Ebonics, who also sponsored the words and the term Ebonics? PBS. If you notice up here, family, look at the website. This is coming from pbs.org. Yeah, PBS had something to do with this as well. Why they're so interesting in the way that Black people speak. Now, I did a little bit of journal research, but I don't want to get you guys too lost in the weed. I want to keep on track here, because there's a lot to be found. There's a lot of evidence that shows there's other hands at work here. And this is like no mystical or no cabal or there's some secret society operating. No, this is plain in our faces of anti-Black racism. This is how you undermine a people and all the different elements of the world when it comes, and I believe that John Henry Clark spoke about this, and Francis Cress Welsing spoke about this. This is not also about Black annihilation, but this is about Black denigration. That we cannot speak proper English, that some of us or most of us can't even form our words correctly. Yeah, I got a little slur every now and again, but that has nothing to do with it. So do other groups as well. But to come out with an entire dictionary, family, is so degrading. And it has been metamorphosing over the years from the Negro non-standard English, Ebonics, Black English, Black this, and family, we're just speaking slang. So let's go over some of these words very quickly. Words like bussin', man, that shit bussin', bro. Meaning, especially describing food, tasty, delicious, grill. Now, grill is not monolithic throughout Black culture. It really depends on where you reside. I'm from Washington, D.C. We never really used the word grill, especially when I was growing up, Generation X. I didn't know what a grill was. I mean, other than the cooking grill. I didn't know what a grill was other than the grates and grill within a grill. I didn't know what a grill was until I started talking to people from the South. Say, yeah, man, I'm about to go get a grill. Oh, man, you going to Home Depot to get your grill? Nah, man, a front piece. Diamonds and gold. Oh, that's a grill. Okay. So they're making this is how all Black people speak, right? Because when people come to America and they try to learn the language, they go get an English teacher and they get an English dictionary. They either get an Oxford or they get a Merriam-Webster dictionary. So when people come to America, like, I need to understand Black people, I'm gonna get the African-American English dictionary. Family, this is a slang dictionary. This is no different than this right here, the Urban Dictionary. The Urban Dictionary, because the Urban Dictionary is satire to me. But people will look up things on the Urban Dictionary to try to figure out what people are saying because it's slang. Urban is city, right? And we can correlate that with slang. So why are people making an entire official dictionary coming out of the two powerhouses that created, dictionaries essentially, not origination, but creating today, Oxford and Merriam-Webster. Now, Oxford is actually supporting this because they create it on their own platform. But again, there's other organizations and certain faces that you should be familiar with. But family, bussin', what you would say if something was really good. I didn't know your mama could cook this good. Yeah, her food be bussin'. This is slang, okay? But again, they're making this out to be an actual language, okay? This is slang, and slang does have something to do with language family, but every group of people have their own slang. They have their own terms. They have their amalgamations of words they made of created and or reinvented of sorts. So again, this is disrespectful to the foundation of Black Americans. Let me continue. Promised land, a place perceived to be where enslaved people and later African Americans more generally can find refuge and live in freedom. A reference to the biblical story of Jewish people seeking for freedom. So wait a minute, is this Jewish? Is this biblical? Is this Christian? Or is this black folk? So they're doing everything in the kitchen. Because the next word, one of the next words you'll see is kitchen, which I had no idea other than the kitchen that's downstairs in my house. I had no idea what this word actually meant until my wife told me, which makes a lot of sense because I don't have any hair. But nonetheless, now, the way that this next word is, let me blow this up for guys on your cell phones. The next word is chitterlings. Now, no black folk I know says chitterlings. We say chitlins. So if they wanted to spell this word correctly, in my opinion, they should have spelled it C-H-I-T, meaning chit, and then you got chitlins, right? Chitlins. Maybe put an I in between, maybe an E, but it should have been spelled chitlins, C-H-I-T-L-E-N-E-S, like lens and chit, chitlins, right? But no one goes around and says, hey man, you haven't have any of those chitterlings? I can't even pronounce it that properly. You have any of those chitterlings for Thanksgiving you're gonna have? Yeah, and guess, here's another thing, family. The word chitterlings that they're using in the African American dictionary is actually on the container that you get from the grocery store. So we didn't create this word. We didn't reinvent this word. We created a nickname for the word, if anything, like chitlins. Chitlins, not chitterlings. But anyway, I digress. Kitchen, the hair at the nape of the neck, which is typically shorter, kinkier, and considered more difficult to style. So where people are talking about, remember people talking about your BDBs in the back of your head? That's what they're talking about, kitchen. I didn't know that. We call it BDBs where I'm from, though. You got the BDBs. Nonetheless. Now, the next one is cakewalk, a contest in which black people will perform a stylist walk in pairs typically judged by a plantation owner. The winner receives some type of cake, something considered easily done. Now, that's the only form I'm familiar with that somebody, oh man, that's a cakewalk, meaning that it's easily to be done. That's real easy for me. Or people will say, oh, that's small thing to a giant. But again, this is not monolithic throughout Black America. It's not. Not all of us use these terms, but I'm telling you, people are going to come to America, or people who are already in America are going to buy this dictionary and they're going to test it out on you. They're going to speak some of this slang that they put in the dictionary that is, because this is what it tells other folk. Did you know that Black Americans in the U.S., they have their own language? Yeah, it's a different formation. It's a different augmentation of the white American language that the Queen of England and all of Great Britain created. See, what they fail to understand in our code switching that we do on these corporate jobs, these public service jobs, these state jobs, is that it's not that we're masking what we're stating, we're just speaking slang. Just like when white folks are out there surfing, hey man, that was a gnarly wave. We don't use the word gnarly. Man, that was so bodacious, dude. That's white American slang. I have no problem with that. But you don't see them going and trying to create, oh, this is white American English. No, they don't do that to other groups. They don't disrespect other groups. Old school. Now, everybody uses the term old school, but again, characteristics of early hip hop or rock music that emerged in New York City between the 1970s to the mid 1980s, which offers with often includes the use of couplets, funk, and disco samples, and playful lyrics. Also used to describe the music and artists of the style and time period. Well, old school means so much more than that. We use the term old school in cars. We use the term old school in people. Oh, nah, man, he old school. Meaning that his culture and his thinking and the way he go about himself are the old school black people during his time. So they're not even giving the full definition of old school. So this don't make the damn dictionary because that doesn't make any sense. Pat, to tap the foot in rhythm with music. Family, listen. Okay. I gotta look this up. I gotta look this up because they're saying Pat is a black term. They're saying that Pat is a black term. Now, this is coming from the Oxford Dictionary, the Oxford's language, and it states here to quickly. Let's see, touch quickly and gently with the flat of the hand. He patted him consolingly on the shoulder. A light stroke with the hand, giving him a friendly pat on the arm. She went off to join the others. A compact mass of soft material, a pat of butter. Okay, and it got some more definitions. Okay, a pat on the back, a pat someone on the back, a pat down, etc. Right? That's coming from the Oxford Dictionary. But they're saying when we use it, when black folk use the word pat, they mean, oh, you're not trying to pat somebody on the back or pat somebody on the arm. You're tapping with your foot because of the rhythm of the music. Sometimes as an indication of participation in religious worship, usually of a person's foot to tap in rhythm with music. Family, I'm unfamiliar with this. I'm truly unfamiliar with the word pat and tapping my foot. Now this one is really strange. Aunt Hagar's children, a reference to black people collectively, probably a reference to Hagar in the Bible, who with her son Ishmael, who was cast out by Sarah and Abraham. I'm gonna move on. Ring shot, a spiritual ritual involving a dance where participants follow one another in a ring shape. I don't know what this is, family. And maybe because I'm from the Northeast, or I think DC is still below the Mason-Dixon line, but we thought we was in the North. But yeah, the Southeast doesn't matter, right? But I'm not familiar with this term, and people that grew up in my generation are not familiar with ring shot. Not in this term. But again, there's over 100 words. They only gave us 10. Ring shot. All right. That's what you say. But we're going to have people like scholars like this young lady who is about to try to explain why they even created this so-called dictionary. Listen in.
Quick, what's the definition of the word kitchen? And I don't mean the room in your house with the refrigerator. Well, a new dictionary can give you the answer. The Oxford Dictionary of African American English will define and trace the origin of words established.
Remember, I told you guys, remember the lady's name, Sandra E. Garcia, because she did a New York Times report on that I didn't buy. I'm not subscribing to New York Times, but anyway.
Reinvented by black people. It's set to be published by March 2025, and we're getting a preview of the first 10 entries, including bussin', grill, chitlins, and yes, kitchen. Joining me now, Tracy Well.
Now, what's funny about this reporter here, he even said chitlins. He didn't say chitterlings. I know, I'm being petty.
Eldon, executive editor and advisory board member for the Oxford Dictionary of African American English and sociolinguist. Tracy, thank you very much for coming to the Sunday show. Before we get into some of the words, what led to this project, and why did you think this is the right time to do it?
Thank you so much for having me this morning, Jonathan. So the Oxford Dictionary of African American English was really the brainchild of Professor Henry Louis Gates of Harvard University.
Did you guys hear that? It was the brainchild of Dr. Henry Louis Gates. Yeah. You know who I'm referring to, family. You know who I'm referring to, the PBS special guy. Why did he think it was important to create a Black American or African American dictionary? Why not create a study for reparations? Something to rival HR 40, because this is a big fat joke. That's what this is. But
it represents a collective effort between Oxford Languages and the Hutchins Center, and is led by a very skilled team of lexicographers and researchers, as well as about a dozen advisory board members who have been leading scholars of African American language. And the time was right because the collaboration was in place and the funding was there. And now more than ever, I think it's important to acknowledge the significant contributions of the African American speech community.
What I was thinking was, when I see a lot of immigrants in the country, whether it be from Asia, Caribbean, Africa, South America, majority of them speak two language. Most of them speak two language because they have to, and some of them, well, especially the new caravans that's coming into America, they only speak one language, which is Spanish. But a lot of these places that was colonized either by the Spanish and or Great Britain or English-speaking countries, they speak at least two languages. They speak English and they speak their native tongue. And in some cases on the African continent, they speak three or four languages because of all the colonization that occurred there. But I digress. The point I'm making here is, it's kind of like they're creating this. In a sense, it makes me think of Jamaica. It makes me think of patois, right? Meaning, and patois is basically broken English. Like, oh, you guys was colonized and you took our words, you broke them up, so it's broken English patois, right? And they spoke in a term where, the colonizers couldn't understand them. I don't know if there's a patois dictionary in Jamaica, but again, family, I want you to point out how no other groups of people that they are denigrating through language, through linguistic matters, meaning that we are so unintelligent, we're just so stupid that we have created a broken form of English that we now have to define in the dictionary for other people to understand us.
To American English more broadly.
Especially at a time when there are efforts around the country to erase our contributions in history writ large. Okay, so let's talk about some of these words that were previewed, such as kitchen, as I mentioned earlier, which is defined in the dictionary as the hair at the nape of the neck, which is typically shorter, kinkier, and considered more difficult to style. Okay, first, why kitchen? That's what I've always wanted to know. And then how do you select these words and trace each of their history?
Yeah, so kitchen is one of those terms that actually has sort of remained what we call in group. It has remained more or less a term that is used by and among members of the African American community, but really has not moved outside the community. It is often said that it's because that part of the neck has such a tight curl to it that it represents peas, which of course you would find in the kitchen. And so that is, I think, where the origins came
and you
from.
Only found in
but it's not one that has been, at least before now, familiar to people outside the African American speech community. There are, of course, other meanings of kitchen that are more familiar.
So then how do you go about selecting words? Which words make it in and which words don't?
Yeah, so that really has been a collaborative effort between the advisory board and the lexicography team. But what we've tried to do is really show the breadth of the African American lexicon. When people think about African American English, they typically think of slang terms. And it's true that African American English has contributed quite a few slang terms to American English more broadly.
Of course
but the 10 words that were featured in the New York Times article that you have listed here attempt to show that beyond just slang terms, there are vocabulary terms that are representative of the plantation era.
No,
there
it's
are
not.
those that are.
No, it's not. There's no vocabulary words. This is all slang to us. You just gave a definition that I wasn't familiar with until then about kitchen because of the kinky hair that's curled into balls that represent peas that come from the kitchen. And the guy like, oh, he don't even think that makes sense. Come on, man.
Associated more with religious traditions. Of course, there are food terms and other, terms that are certainly associated with musical traditions like jazz and hip hop, which are often really strong vehicles for moving those vocabulary items outside of the community into more mainstream society.
So, Tracy, we've got about a minute left, but you also accept public submissions. So how can someone go about that? And what are the criteria for submitting a word? And I want to submit two. I want to submit two. Where did I write them down? Oh, here they are. 5011. 5011 is one of them.
5011, yes.
And East Jablip.
Oh, okay. That's a new one. You'll have to tell me about that one.
That means... all over the place, where some unknown place. But go ahead. How can someone submit a word?
Right. So we're getting our entries from a number of different sources: music, literature. But one of the most important sources of
I'm done with that, family. This is stretching. All right, let's move on. All right. So here we go, the public OED of the Oxford Dictionary American Language, right? And so what I wanted to point out here is, where does the funding come from? We know a lot of these Black academia people, they derive from Ivy League schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown, etc. And we come down here, an exciting project from OED and Harvard University Hudson Center for African and African American research is currently underway. Read more about the project below. Now, I don't know why this is coming out of the African and the African American, which are two different cultures, two different lineages. I digress with that as well. It says, we're proud to be initiating this timely important project with the team at Harvard. African American English has a profound impact on the world's most widely spoken language, yet much of it has been obscured. What does obscured mean? Can we look that up very quickly? Much of it has been obscured. Yeah, we have to do some investigative research here, so we understand the etymology of words. Yeah, I know that word too, and I know lexicon and vernacular, enunciation, pronunciation that deals with linguistic matters. Yeah, I'm just a little frustrated with Black academia, and then you got, what's the guy's name? Dr. Cornel West running for president. Yeah, I used to admire his intelligence, family, but when I realized and through many ways that this guy was on a coon train, I definitely had to get off. And this was about, I'll have to say about 5 years ago. But nonetheless, obscure. Keep from being seen and concealed. Make unclear and difficult to understand. Make difficult to understand, okay? So when we go back here, that the language has been obscured, meaning it's difficult to understand. Seeks to acknowledge their contribution more fully and formally, and in doing so create a powerful tool for a new generation of researchers, students, and scholars to build a more accurate picture of how African American life has influenced how we speak and therefore who we are. Now, who's behind it all? That's where the real research comes in. Funding in parts by grants from the Mellon and Wagner Foundations. The Oxford Dictionary of African American English is a landmark scholarly initiative to blah, 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 right? Talk about the Black American language, okay? The African American language. So we have the Mellon Foundation, the Wagner Foundation, and PBS. Let's not forget PBS. Let's not forget PBS, okay? So I wanted to point out some other things here. I looked this up very quickly just to kind of give you some contrast. The Oxford Dictionary of English Etymology is the most comprehensive etymological dictionary of the English language ever published. Okay? Keep that in mind. Let's move on. The Wagner Foundation. Okay? So I was just wondering because the Wagner and the Mellon Foundation are the two organizations that probably funded this project of creating the African American dictionary through Oxford Dictionary. I wonder, like, who is funding this, right? And we stated that before. We showed who is funding it. And these were the two organizations, other than Oxford, PBS as well, that was funding this. So I kind of went here and I was looking at the mission statement and our vision is the robust community and this, that, and the other. And then instead of reading like I mostly do and I love to do, I started to look at the pictures. And I noticed that the pictures that I'm seeing here are not Black Americans, okay? This seems to be African people out of Africa. And they're picking through seeds or corn or grain of some sorts. And of course, you got white women here helping out, being the progressive liberals that they are, or feminists that they are. I don't know, allegedly. Okay, I'm just going to use that loosely when I could probably be sued of some of the things I'm going to say here. This is allegedly. Everything I'm going to say here is allegedly. But yeah, I just had to look at, who are they supporting and what they're essentially are about. But of course, I couldn't really find out who's behind all of this. So I said about. And what I started to notice is that these two women here continue to pop up. These two women, not this Black lady, but these two women, Charlotte and Caroline. But anyway, and as I started to look down here, family, what I noticed is, right, who is this foundation made up of? Charlotte Wagner, the founder, Caroline, the deputy director, Bridget Mescal, David, Lily Sargent, Abigail Snitsky, Carissa Bobskill, and family. Let me tell you that every single person that's on this team is of the Caucasian persuasion. They are Anglo-Saxon. And out of all of these people here, there's only one male. There's only one male, family. One guy, right? Why is that significant? Because for so long, the Black grassroots media has been telling the people that a lot of the agenda that's coming from whether it be the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, or as Cornel West, the Independent Party, is funded by white liberals. It's funded by white liberals. And we have to understand that the Democratic Party used to be the Dixiecrat, the party of the KKK. So as we are now understanding and comprehending and finding out more about the history, because again, family, a lot of times when you go and you look at a tree, oh man, that tree is so big, you're mostly looking at the mass of the tree and the branches of the tree and whatever the tree is providing, whether it be fruit or foliage from the tree. No one is looking at the root of the tree. And when it comes to history and understand how a lot of these, whether they be political parties or private groups that support some of the degrading nature publicly about Black people, you realize through history where they actually derive from. So again, I had to go and look at the money. But first, where they actually work out of? Burundi. Look at the countries they work out of Africa. Burundi, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Kenya, Lesotho, Libya, Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Rwanda, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Togo, and Uganda. Out of Latin America, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Peru. Caribbean, Haiti. North America, Boston, that's it, right? And here are all the selected support, right? Here are the groups that are actually supporting the Wagner Foundation, and then the Wagner Foundation thus supporting Oxford in creating this debauchery of what they would like to call the African American language, okay, which is not us. We had a language, And there's been a couple of people who've done specials on them called the Tut language, T-U-T language, that was solely created from Black Americans, those who are descendants of American slaves, those U.S. Black freedmen, those foundational Black Americans. That's what we are. Because when you say African American family, I want you to think about that. What part of Africa? Because when I look at the northern part of Africa that was invaded and still being colonized and that was conquered by Arabs and the Middle Easterners, that is now called the Arab Emirates or whatever, the Arab Emirates, whatever, right? I'm even messing that up. Maybe that's just my Ebonics. Oh, maybe that's just the African American dictionary language. Yeah. Anyway. And so this is the lady here who is the president. And where she's from? Harvard. Where she's from? Harvard. Let me back up. Henry Louis Gates. I'm just pointing these things out because you guys need to understand all these organizations that are in cahoots and in partnerships and support of what is their agenda. Okay? And here's Carolyn Easley. Yep, I found you, sister. Oh, yeah. You are the deputy director of the Wagner Foundation. Again, who's behind it? White folk, mostly white women. Okay? But then I went over to the Mellon Foundation, and I was like, oh, this is a sister. Elizabeth Alexander, president, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. And then some of you will stop right there, would you not? Like, oh, okay, assistant funded this, so it might not be as bad as we think. So I had to do some research on it. And yeah, I got a little petty with it. I got petty. I looked up her husband. This guy is from Africa. This guy is Eritrean. Now, unfortunately, she lost her husband back in 2012, and he left her with a fortune. He left her with paintings, and he had he was a chef and he was a painter, a very famous collection of paintings. So he basically left her with a fortune. But I was like, well, where did the money come from prior to that? Because I did the timeline, right? So I come to find out that this so-called Mellon Foundation wasn't created by Elizabeth Alexander, but was created by Elisa Mellon Bruce. Okay, where did she get her wealth from? She got her wealth who established the Avalon Foundation. So again, white women are behind this whole push with organizations that are in support of, and whether it be monetarily or socially, Harvard University, PBS, the Mellon Organization, okay, the Wagner Foundation. You have all of these white-ran organizations that got their money by some way or somehow that is supporting an African-American dictionary. Why? You may think, oh, I don't think they're trying to understand us better, Ross. They can understand us, can they not? They invite us on their TV shows, on their broadcasts. We speak perfect English. We may slur some words. We may mispronounce some words every now and again, just like everyone else. Just like everyone else. But they're trying to create a dictionary based off our slang, which is very disrespectful. So the financials. This was really got me into finding out where this money comes from. So the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation was created in 1969 with $273 million in assets following the consolidation of the Avalon Foundation and the Old Dominion Foundation. This is old white money that formed this foundation that a black lady now is head of. The assets of the new organization were augmented with additional funds from the estate of Elisa Mellon Bruce. And by 1970, Mellon had assets of $700 million. By 1980, the last year, Mellon received a payout. From Elisa Mellon's Bruce estate. Our assets had grown to $880 million The Mellon's endowment totaled approximately $9.5 billion at the end of 2021. So they have an ungodly amount of money to push whatever rhetoric they want to out of this Mellon Foundation that they've made a black woman the face of. Who made a black woman the face of. So when I look at this family, again, this shows me truly who's behind the agenda. White liberals. And for ever since the 60s, we continue to vote Democrat. And I'm not pushing you towards independent. I'm not pushing you towards Cornel West. I'm not pushing you towards Republican. But the point of this is, how does this help Black America? How does this help the descendants of American slaves? How does this help us? It doesn't, family. It once again disrespects us. It misaligns us with other groups of understanding and comprehension. That's what this does. This is just another way of how white America and those who believe in the superiority of the dominant society and white ideology by the way of white supremacy would denigrate, disrespect Black Americans. That's what this would do. That's what this would do. Oh, well, I know you guys speak Ebonics. I know you guys got that African American dictionary, so you probably don't understand what I'm talking about. Or I don't understand what you're talking about, and maybe you're speaking at some of the black Ebonics. Maybe you're speaking some of that African American. Right. Sandra E. Garcia. The first 10 words of the African American English Dictionary are in. And so I didn't have the opportunity to read this article by Sandra E. Garcia, but I did some research on it because I needed to find out who is this lady? First of all, with the last name Garcia. So either she is a Black Hispanic or she's married to a Hispanic gentleman, okay? But when I saw this as one of her Issa Rae's, when I saw that she did an article about it, I had to do more research on Sandra E. Garcia, right? I had to do more research. And so she's a writer for the New York Times, and she's also part of the Lehman College Association, right? And we know about Lehman College. I won't go there. But it was one question out of these 10 questions that I wanted to point out to you guys. It states here, in one of your recent articles, where did BIPOC come from? You speak about the origins of the acronym. Why was this an important article for you to write? It was important to me because these terms are always co-opted without consulting with the people that they address. So why did you write an article about these so-called 10 words in this so-called African American English dictionary? Why didn't you consult the masses of Black America before you just did this piece? Don't worry about it. It says here, people should know what a term means, where it comes from, and how the people, the intent to address, feel about it before it is adopted in the masses. So if that's the case, I believe that the article that she wrote, right, instead of saying the first 10 words of the African American English Dictionary are in, and doesn't mean that she agreed with it or she disagreed with it, but because of these questions that someone asks you, don't you think you should have questioned this dictionary in a more journalistic way? Don't you believe that you should have did more investigative journalism to see the aura and the energy and what Black Americans actually stating that we're coming up with an African American dictionary? Afterwards, we had the Urban Dictionary, which all of these words are primarily in. And again, these words are not monolithic throughout Black America because not all of them use them. Because some of this use plain old American English. Because what it's basically saying is African Americans, Black Americans, we use bastardized English versus it's just been called in slang. And that's what it's about. So I had to figure out, okay, where is this organizations and who's supporting Sandra E. Garcia, Greenwood, Asher, and Associates, right? And it gives you a history about that. We're not going to get into it here. I'm just giving you this for references. Always good to reference your material. And I needed to look at who are the founders, who are the people who are in operations, who are the people who make up this association, who makes up this foundation, who makes up this organization? White people, mostly white women. Mostly white women. But wait, there's more. You always got to have a token Negro, do you not? And where is she? The only token Negro. Not Sandra E. Garcia, but Tracy Weldon, the one who did the news piece with MSNBC. Let me get back to her. Family. Give me a second here. Give me a second. I'm trying to find her. So you guys don't forget Tracy Weldon. Because this is straight disrespect. I think I closed it out. But that was the lady that was speaking, Tracy Weldon. This is the organization that she's a part of. And see, when you follow down the timeline with the evidence that's provided here, that all of these people are linked in some form or fashion. And when I looked at who makes the team, if you notice, family, you have Jan Greenwood, Betty Asher, who are the co-founders, right? Then you have Susan Griffin, Robert Carrot, Jeremy Duff, Jim Johnson, and last but not least, the token Negro, Tracy Weldon, who's last on the list. You know, it makes me want to just do one more thing. And this is going over the time I want to go over, but family, I have to do this. I absolutely have to look at what I'm about to show you, because I may be shocked, but something is telling me to look this up. Okay, something is telling me to look this up, just because of people who are associated with her. Okay, so give me 1 second here. I'm trying to look her up very quickly. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, what I'm trying to do. There it is. Now I know a lot of you, I don't like using Wikipedia, but for this term, I'm gonna make a pass, because it states right here in the documentary Talking Black in America, Tracy discussed her husband, who is from Jamaica, man. Through her studies and career, the both of them have been able to recognize similarities and difference in the way he speaks compared to people from other parts of the Caribbean. Why did I know that her husband was not Black American? Some things you just know, family. Because the first thought, I'm like, he has to be white, or he is not Black American. So before I said anything, I wanted to make sure. But you know me, I'll put my foot in my mouth. I will police my mouth when I am wrong. But I was right. Now, I started to just have a little bit more fun with this, and I'm about to end here shortly, family. I wanted to know these other groups that we have in America, you know, like white Americans. What are some of the slang terms that they use that we may or may not use? Hot girl summer. All right, everybody uses that. My guy. I've heard a couple of Black people use this, but I mostly heard this out of white America. Bop, yeah. Okay, Caucasian friends, for future reference, when you're looking for a word to paste over a Spotify link or your IG story, please just don't. I never knew that terminology. Here's what slaps. Bay Area hip hop. That's it. Here are the things that don't actually slap. Now, I've heard Black people use that as well. Yeah. Back on my BS. Yeah. Now we go to Italian American slang words. I'm not making this up. And a lot of these words, I cannot read Italian, family, so I'm not going to even begin to, but we will go over some of the definitions. Pronounced like adi zupats. Adi zupats. This is a phrase you might shout at someone when you think they're crazy or behaving strangely, okay? What is this one? If you hear an Italian American say this to you, you should be offended because it means that they're telling you to go to hell. I ate all leftover pizza. Sorry, bro. How could you do that to me? Affanabola. Yeah, I don't know some of these words. But the point is, even the Italians have their own slang words that they use in America. Right? And I'm going to go down to one to most of you guys are familiar with because of The Godfather. Bada bing. This is probably one of the most stereotypical Italian-American slang words you probably heard in his various TV shows or movies, right? That was popularized by The Godfather. Or bash, a simple phrase that means downstairs. Where do you keep your food? It's all bash. Come on, I'll show you. And I don't know these terminologies, but are they making an Italian-American dictionary? For the rest of Americans say, oh, Italians don't speak American good old white English. They have their own Italian-American English, do they not? And they have over 100 words here. I'm just going to scan through this. Look, they already have a dictionary of words for Italian-Americans, but are they making a dictionary? No, because there's no agenda against Italian-Americans because first and foremost, they consider Italian-Americans white, right? Because they derive from a country in Europe. We don't need to go to the Census Bureau. We already did that 100 times. So I had to go over and look at Irish slang words. This guy's to Irish slang and insults. We have you down in Guinness with the locals in a flash. Here we go. I'm grand. Black people don't use that, but it means that I'm all right. Session, party. He's sound, he's cool. Like we like, yeah, man. We may use that in some form of terminology. Nah, man, that's a sound brother. We use that sometimes. Shift, kissing with the tongue. We don't use that. What's the story? What's the crack? And again, I'm not trying to make black people a monolith of what we use and what we don't use, but I'm just stating, I've been to many parts of America, and I can just tell you a lot of our language is not geared around other cultures, right? We created it ourselves, or we reinvented the colonial language that was given to us when our ancestors were enslaved, okay? Now, here we go. I'm greened out, locked off my head, legless, I'm drunk. I can. I just want to say for most of us, I don't believe we use majority of these, Irish terms. God Almighty, all the Lord, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Oh my God. I'm sickened. I'm mad, raging. Would you come on to hurry up? Yoke, thingy. I gave out to him. I told him off. Yeah. Family, that's pretty much it for me today. But again, when you guys go to the voting booth, if you go at all, just understand what you're voting for. These are Democratic-led white liberal females with these foundations, as I stated, and showed you the backing of where the money comes from and the different organizations that are in cahoots and cohorts to fund some of these very disrespectful, denigrating, demeaning projects, and it's not for black people. That's the last thing I want to leave you with. This is not for us. We don't need a dictionary for us. They're making this for white America. And this is to tell white America we don't speak English. We speak a broken form of English that we can't speak correctly, and we use Ebonics, and we use a non-standard Negro language, and now there's the African American dictionary. Because here's the thing, family, when you start to create a dictionary to define terms, that is your language. Like when we, in the English language, right, we most go for the Oxford Dictionary or the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. We may forget or mispronounce or trying to figure out a word and or its definition. So when people come to black folk and they speak and we speak and they don't understand, they're going to go to their African American dictionary. Even though we're in a public setting, even though we're in a corporate setting, I'm going to say a word. I may mispronounce a word and they're going to say, oh, that's the African American language you're speaking. Let me go look it up. It's very disrespectful. It's to make us look unintelligent, stupid, and foolish. So understand who's for you and against you, regardless of their skin color, because there's a lot of boot-licking black people in support of the system of white supremacy. And I want you to notice, whether it be Tracy Weldon, Dr. Tracy Weldon, Lehman College, Dr. Henry Louis Gates, PBS, Elizabeth Alexander Mellon Foundation, funded by Elisa Mellon Bruce, who got their money from creating Avalon, or Charlotte and Caroline out of the Wagner organization. You got to follow the money, family, and understand what's the agenda and what is it for. I'll leave you with that.